What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Yield Today If Down Camlin podcast. This is episode number 77. We're going to be talking about something that is kind of on my mind right now. And that's something I really enjoy about doing these podcast episodes, these solo episodes, is, a lot of them do kind of strike deep with what I'm going through at the time. I'm kind of in a hole with all of you guys in different ways. But this is something that I've personally been kind of struggling with and feeling, especially in like the last 3 days. And that is like the struggle that happens before everything comes together. I remember watching a lot of like Scooby-Doo episodes as a kid, and there's times like they get clues, right? It's like, oh look, it's a clue, it's another clue. But you're like, who did it, right? You still don't know who did it. And that's been like the case in my life lately. It's like, yeah, like we're making progress in these things, but when is it all gonna come together? And that's when you kind of just have to like do what you can do with what you have. And I have like 3 tips I'm going to share in this episode, are things that I've kind of done to kind of help me make peace with the situation. Like, yeah, it's been a little bit of a crazy last couple days, and we've had to kind of dig into ourselves and figure out what's going on. And it's kind of these same patterns, these same kind of things, recognizing them and then moving forward. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. With that, here's our 3 things. We have organize, talk to other people, and give. So with organizing, I feel like you really need to have a good idea of what's going on in your life, like what's really going on. There have been times when I have overreacted about things because I assumed that something was happening and that wasn't true. And so it really helps to kind of give yourself this time to be like, okay, what is actually going on? What is really going to happen? Because there's been times I've been like, oh, if I don't get this done, it's the end of the world. Maybe not. If you really think about it, you might take a late grade, you might have to go to tutoring. That's not the end of the world, and so you just kind of give yourself time to organize, basically plan for the next moment, put things back into your control. I think that's such a big important piece of this. I hate starting on defense. When you jump into a game, I mean, it can be kind of fun sometimes. You jump in the game and you're already down by 20, and you're like, you have to play better defense, you have to play better offense. I prefer to already have an offensive game plan, and then, defense kind of comes along with it. But it doesn't really help if you are already trying to catch up. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And with this, for me, you've kind of changed what was going to give you that win, or maybe what was going to give you the win is unrealistic at that time, and that's okay. Now you just need to come up with a different game plan, a different goal, a different thing that you're working towards, right? And for me, lately, it's just providing good content, and it's just enjoying the journey. If I am doing those 2 things, seriously, I am fine. If I'm making personal growth, progress and stuff like that, if I'm, going on dates with cute girls and meeting people, awesome. But if I'm doing those 2 things, like making great content and having a great time, that's awesome. And of course I need to be doing that spiritual stuff too. Let's talk a little bit about the spiritual stuff, because me, I'm a spiritual guy, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, served for 2 years as a missionary for that church. So I'm very passionate about that, but that's not the point of this podcast. I want to help people of all beliefs and etc. But there's a couple scriptures that have really helped me out a lot. One of them is Ether 12:6 in the Book of Mormon. And it just says, that you receive no witness until after the trial of your faith, dispute not because ye see not. And that scripture is very powerful to me. It helped me a lot in my beginning track days. It's like, yeah, you stink because you haven't done a lot of running yet, dude. And I get excited about this because I'm passionate about this, and I need to dial it down sometimes. But that's why you're not good yet. You have to put in more practice. I like to think I'm a pretty good podcaster, and I just need to get discovered more, and I need to just keep improving my workflow and stuff like that. And it's just going to work. It's just going to grow. I recently found out that one of my podcast interviews actually went live. The one I did on the People Empowering People podcast, the Pep Talks podcast, back in August, I did that. I thought none of my podcast appearances were online yet. I searched for my name on Google today, and I found this like Amazon thing for like listening to a podcast. I was like, but this is third person. I didn't write this. But at the same time, I feel like I did write it. So it was this little like thing little bio I sent to Kel. I don't want to mess up her name. Starts with a K. Really awesome person. I'm going to try to get her on this podcast because she's just super awesome. She's done coaching for track. She's like a special needs teacher. She's just super awesome. But she like made this episode and I listened to it. I was like, oh my goodness, it actually sounds good. And it's like I really need to like keep going with the book. And that's what's really been eroding everything, is I feel like the book isn't going anywhere because it isn't. But my mindset with the book has just been like, it has to be perfect before I release it. And I released it in August, but it was like a soft launch without even a book cover. Like, what am I doing? But that's okay, And I'm gonna move forward with this. This is a moment where things don't make a ton of sense. That's because I haven't really given them a lot of ability to do that, to come together, right? I've been thinking a lot lately just about how important it is to give yourself this time to process things. My nose might be a little red. That's because I just came back inside from just sitting on this beautiful bench in Rexburg where I just do a lot of thinking. I sat there for an hour. I dared myself to do it. Just like come up with a better morning routine than the one you have right now. Write some blog posts and sit here. And that's what I did. My phone died, in the middle of it. Maybe a little bit after the middle mark. And yeah. So basically, what I'm just trying to say, again, with organizing, put yourself back in the game as the hero in your story. Give yourself the active role instead of being the passive role. Give yourself a new goal and just remind yourself of what's coming up next and some things you can look forward to. I hope that is helpful. Number 2 is talking with people about it. What has been so ridiculously helpful for me over the last couple days is talking to mentors, talking with people that have my best interest in mind, because they can see me, differently than I do myself. I like to think of seeing myself in a pretty good light most days, but sometimes I don't. I'm kind of just a little bit more blind to it. But I had a really good talk with my friend Mac, and I met him like, I don't know, week 2 of BYU Idaho, and he's just a super cool guy. And he's invited me to like this book club, and he wants me to help out people. And he's like, you were like one of the first people I thought of. And it just kind of humbled me. I was like, holy heck. I was like, holy moly, I've just been beating myself up to a pulp lately. It's all been silent, but I have been. It's like, oh, my accounting grade isn't the best right now, and that just means I'm a terrible person. Or, whatever dumb story I've been telling myself. But talking with Mac last night, it was so good. It made me so excited. I was like, oh, Mac, I love you so much, dude. You're just so great. And that is what's really been helpful, is just talking with people, because then you can get the emotions out. And, doing this podcast is a form of therapy for me, and also just a form of growth, obviously, because I have to like dig into these things and make better sense of them. But yeah, like talking to my mom, talking to roommates, talking to these people that have my back, it really helps me remember that I've worked really hard. I've done some crazy stuff to make this work, and I've had a great time doing it. And I'm going to keep going. And these people can remind me to keep going. Aaron Denny's been a great one for me. Lately, Aaron's been like sending me messages like, hey, I really enjoyed this episode of the podcast. We've been going on runs, and it's been so good, like spending that time with him. He's made me food too. So yeah, I love Aaron as well, of course. So that's another thing. because you just get to get a better idea of where you really are when you get to talk about it. Number three is just giving yourself that space, giving yourself that time to think, kind of going back to the processing thing. And you just kind of are like, you know what? This is what we can do right now. And it's okay that we can't get XYZ done as well. You just being honest with yourself, giving yourself space to think, to ponder. There's this really cool song, and maybe it was Paul Cardell, but he basically said, give yourself more, give yourself time. And I think that's really good because sometimes I just want the result immediately, just like snap your fingers and bam. Now I'm making money. Now I'm influencing people all over the world. Now this is happening. And, you know, you got to enjoy the process and you got to give yourself some space, give yourself some air. And with a lot of these social media things and whatnot, they can really be suffocating. Just like putting this one message like down your throat. So especially some of the emails I've been reading recently, like it's not like bad, but it's like, do this one thing if you want to become the best internet marketer person. If you don't do this, you won't ever do anything. And what I've really told myself lately with these things, like, you know what? A lot of them are very helpful, but you know, I could figure out a lot of this stuff on my own. I could create and then use this stuff to help me get started. And that's just how I feel about the matter. You know, a lot of the time, these things are just selling you to click. And honestly, I do a little bit of that with this podcast, obviously, so you'll listen. But yeah, just giving yourself time, giving yourself that space. And like, just give yourself like time to ponder the wall. I think that's the real big takeaway. I really want to share really fast. There's a really good book, The Last Lecture. It's about Randy Spock, and he had cancer, right? But he was determined to make the most of it, most of every single rest of the days of that he had on Earth, and he's passed away by now. But he just gave this really good lecture about how he chose to keep living, you know, each day of his life, even though he knew he was going to die. And there were some points in his life when he wanted to have these like goals and dreams to happen in his life, but there were walls in his way. And he has this really good quote in the book that says something along the lines of, the walls are to keep those out. Like, it's to keep the right people in, to keep the wrong people out. And he said, some walls are made of flesh, some walls are not. And that really like hit me, because sometimes people are in your way. They're like, you can't do this, you can't do whatever. And when you take some time to really step back and be like, okay, this is the wall in front of me and this is how I feel about it, this is what I can do. Getting to know that wall, I think, is so ridiculously powerful. And you can pray for help to understand the wall. Sometimes things just need time before they break free, before they grow, before they, you know, all that stuff. A good example for me is Pokemon. Like, your Pokemon could have like these super good moves and be like really busting some chops and just showing this amazing potential. Like Muklohita, man, in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, like, he can be so good. But until he evolves into Hariyama, he has not even touched like, he's barely scratched the surface of his potential until he evolves. And so, like, he might be getting these moves and showing so much promise, but until he evolves, like, that potential, like, is still very dormant. But once he evolves, like, the sky is not nowhere close to the limit. The sky is, like, the limit is endless. There's no limit once you pass that point. And that's where I feel like I'm at right now. I'm learning a lot, I'm growing a lot, but I'm just haven't quite gone into that next level yet. And that's okay, because this is a diligence battle. This is a resiliency battle. This is a patience battle. This is a compassion battle. If I choose to not have enough self-compassion on myself, then this journey will conclude, because I know I need to have some self-compassion. And I had this cool like little definition come to mind of like space, so you can like actually process things. And for me, like space, giving yourself some space, is giving yourself a place where there's no expectations. It's just, here's the expectation, just breathe. Just sit here and watch this show. Just play this game and think about it. I've gotten some really cool ideas and blog ideas from playing Pokemon. And even just now, I mean, that was an idea that came to mind from playing Pokemon, was this idea of transformation and growth. It takes time, but yes, it does happen over time, and you can win, you can learn from the battles, and there'll be some days that are more like a gym leader and you'll lose over and over again, but you'll keep trying, right? You'll keep learning and growing. And those difficult times, they really teach you so much because they help you take a step back. Lately, my morning routine's been garbage. Like, I have to say it. It's been okay, but like today it didn't work and I was more on edge. I was playing on defense for a lot of the day until now. I feel like I'm on offense again. And, until I really talked with myself and gave myself the time to really share that, how I was feeling, I don't think I wasn't going to make it to this point, because dishonesty just doesn't lead to anything good. It never does. And yeah. So organizing, like kind of like coming up with a game plan, planning it out. I have like a system I use to help me do this better, and I might make an episode on that on Thursday. Just like giving yourself that time. So organizing, talking with other people, and just giving yourself that space to like be okay with not making a ton of progress, but just living, just learning, just being okay with the journey, going for a walk, going for a run, just doing something to kind of relax and unwind. I think that's one of the best things you can do for yourself when you aren't quite sure, when things are still so in the air. But, there's the end of that verse in Ether 12:6 is that there's another cool scripture that I really want to end on. It's Hebrews 10:36 and 37. It just says, "Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward, for ye have need of patience, that after you've done the will of God ye might receive the promise." And that's what we're trusting in right now. We've planted the seed, we've worked on it, and now we got to watch it grow. And there's days when we will look at the seed and we'll be like, what are you doing? There's no way this seed is going to grow. But we remember the nature of the seed that we planted. We remember who we are, and we trust that it will grow. So, as always, I hope this podcast was inspirational and beneficial to you in some way. Definitely follow the podcast for more thoughts on life. Definitely follow the podcast for more interviews, thoughts on life, ways to dig into your best life and bring out the best results. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to yield today, and it will be a better tomorrow.